Season 1 leaderboard here for 2015. Fabiano, no slouch himself, number 12 on that Season 1 leaderboard. Both these players, they want to head to the Players' Championship. Gerard's been there, Boswell close last year, but it's a goal of his for this year, and we'll see if he can obtain it. As we are underway here in round number 6, Boswell going to start off with a Warden of the First Tree.
And Gerard's deck is basically a 3-color control deck with a heavy delve element to it. Even playing 2 main deck copies of Rakshas's Secret to facilitate that sort of thing.
There you do see Warden of the First Tree, many calling it the brand new figure of destiny. It does have some similarities, but there are also some differences as well, as it does serve in for 1 point of damage here, and the follow-up for Boswell will be a copy of Fleecemane Lion. Again, this feels very green-white-esque from the previous format. The boss has been doing strategies like this for some time.
Taking a lot of damage, but doesn't really care about it, and this is the kind of start that this deck capitalizes on. Gerard opening on 2 Scry lands, not playing to the board at all.
If you took the time to read Fabiano's article this week, that did go up on Star City Games. He wrote about the Sultai decks that he will be playing either in this standard tournament, which he's playing right now, or tomorrow, if he does do battle in the Legacy, in case he does not make day 2. But he said he's Sultai through and through, likes this deck in multiple formats, likes what it brings to the table. And we kind of forget, in Philadelphia last week, and Ross Merriam was really the story, as he made it to the finals before he was defeated by Daryl Ayers and his Kurt Apes. But Fabiano lost me for top 8 of that tournament.
Yeah.
So he definitely had a good tournament there. I believe he finished exactly in 10th place. So he's under the gun right now from this attack from Boswell, but he's at 5-0. He's off to another great start.
Gerard's been playing great Magic. I mean, I know it's because he plays some unorthodox decks and his personality is kind of goofy that it's easy not to take him seriously 100% of the time, but he has been playing exceptional Magic the last couple of years.
Grand Prix champion recently, 2nd place at the Players' Championship, 10th place in Philadelphia a couple weeks ago. It's weird to say he's flying under the radar a little bit, but he kind of is.
Relative to his results, he absolutely is flying under the radar.
He'll play a Temple of Mystery. Temple's, of course, very powerful, but there's a cost to go along with them, and it's that they enter the battlefield tapped. And this is what these Abzan aggro decks can really take advantage of, is while you're messing around, getting your mana base online and scrying, I'm beating you down.
Yep.
And Boswell's start is a rather good one. You can really thank Mana Confluence for that. See Boswell hand. 2 copies of Bile Blight and Abzan Charm, a Soldier of the Pantheon on Fleecemane Lion. He might not have to deploy anything else at this point. He might be happy with what he has. As Fabiano lays out his hand, he's got 7 cards there. 7 Jetpack Penguins.
I mean, I think that Andrew can open up the turn just by attacking and see what Gerard does. It's hard to imagine that he would slow roll a Bile Blight here. So Boswell may feel like the coast is clear to play a Fleecemane Lion after combat if Gerard does nothing.
What makes the Warden a little unique too is, and much like Figure of Destiny before, you don't have to pump it. It's an option that you can always present to your opponent, but that's something you have to do. Boswell going to play Soldier of the Pantheon, diversify the threats, make sure that Bile Blight doesn't come online.
Yep. And, you know, you got to be... Warden of the First Tree here, it hasn't been activated, though I think it would have been if Boswell had found a 3rd land by now. But even just playing a 1-mana 1/1's been good for Boswell this game. Typically, these Abzan aggro decks are just saying, you know, turn 1, go. Maybe play a land that comes into play tapped, but definitely getting his mileage out of this card just as a 1-mana 1/1 so far in this game.
Another Temple here for Fabiano. Another Temple of Deceit. Top card going to become the bottom card. And it's just a passing of the turn. Again, some decks may have picked up some tools, be it Drew Levin's take on Mono Red or Boswell's take on Abzan aggro, where you can be a little bit lower to the ground because there aren't a lot of aggressive strategies in this format. So you see Fabiano, this is a pretty classic start for a lot of decks because you expect to see Abzan mid-range and Abzan control and these Variabos decks. These are the kind of strategies, like what Boswell's doing, that keep those things in check.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's capitalizing on all of these comes into play tap lands, of people trying to play with 3 and 4 mana removal spells. It's all part of the package to justify playing a deck like this.
For Boswell this turn, it's a pretty simple one, which is just attacking. You see him kind of shrug his shoulders and say, Gerard, you need to make a move, man, or I'm just going to keep doing this. Gerard says, I don't want to make a move. You make a move first.
Well, technically, Gerard does not have to move here, as he's falling to... He'd be falling to 1 here if combat just went through.
Boswell going to take a look at things. See his hand among the cards he has in his hand. He actually picked up a copy of Valorous Stance for the turn.
And I think that Gerard doing this play to me, is a sign that he's planning on playing Crux of Fate next turn. Really hard to imagine the downfall going at the Regenerator otherwise.
We'll see if that's on Boswell's radar, as he has not done anything with his mana. He's just going to pass the turn back, so looks like it may be on the old radar here for the Boss. Fabiano going to draw a card. He's going to play a Swamp. And he's going to play a Crux of Fate. However, a Valorous Stance here is the response here from Boswell. Crux of Fate, just destroy all dragon creatures, destroy all non-dragon creatures. However, there's a 3/3 left behind the Fleece main line, thanks to Valorous Stance, which will get the job done.
Andrew Boswell gets Gerard to exactly lethal.
That's the big plan.
Perfect.
Easy does it. Boss up a game here over GFabs. Ops on Aggro up a game over Sultai Controls. We take a look at the sideboards, and we will start with Fabiano. I imagine it's a doozy over there.
A Sultai Charm, 2 copies of Tasigur, 2 copies of Feed the Clan.
Oh, he wrote about that.
Ooh, a Pelucanos World Eater, 2 copies of Negate, a Thoughtseize, a Drown in Sorrow, 2 copies of Rakshasa Death Dealer, 2 Farika's Cures, and a Slumagar the Drifting Death.
Drifty D.
Drifty D.
Is what the Twitter folk had to call that one.
So, there's a lot of kind of average options in the sideboard here. Nothing stands out. For example, the Drown in Sorrow is okay, but there's a lot of 3/3s in the deck, and Andrew has a lot of play with even things like Rakshasa Death Dealer protecting it. I still think the Drown in Sorrow will come in. I think the 2 Death Dealers will be good for Gerard in this matchup, just as something to block or something to trade. I like his copy of Pelucanos here as well, and the Tasigur, just a big blocker.
Other side of things here for the Boss, he's got 2 Hunt the Hunter, 2 Glare of Heresy, 3 Drown in Sorrow, another and a Murderous Cut, 4 Thoughtseizes, and then 2 Nissa World Waker. I like Nissa if we get to that point. It's just a nice high-end threat, and it gives him an option. But, outside of that, maybe, do you like Thoughtseize in this matchup? It seems like it's just okay.
I think Thoughtseize is just okay. The 2 Nissas are attractive. Sultai Control really struggles to handle Nissa. I mean, it's one of the big problems for that deck. So I think those will definitely come in. And I anticipate the Thoughtseize as well, too. Boswell's got these 3 copies of Bioblight. They probably have to come out of the deck. And there's probably some other options here as well to shave out to make room for Thoughtseizes.
There are definitely some options available here. More for Fabiano's side than I would say Boswell's, though.
Though, Fabiano is a little light on action for the matchup, I feel like. He does have some good stuff, but he has no home runs for the matchup. Though that is kind of a function of the deck that Boswell is playing, too. He's not playing some super linear beatdown deck where a Drown in Sorrow just holds him. He has 3/3s, and he can go up the chain with things like Siege Rhino and Offenza, so he has a little more staying power than the average beatdown deck.
That's why I like this Ops on Aggro deck, and that's why we saw a lot of players gravitate towards this deck for Grand Prix and Open Series events before Fate Reforged did make its way into the format. Now, one place you can play Boswell's Ops on Aggro deck or Gerard's wacky take on Sultai is Regionals. It's coming up here in just 2 weeks, February 7th.
Yep, the weekend after the Open in Indianapolis, we'll have Regionals February 7th. We've announced the venues, as you can see on the map. You can also always head over to StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information. And keep in mind that the first 200 players to register for their regionals will receive this free playmat.
Free exclusive to the first 200 players, as Patrick did mention, all of the squirrels together from last year. StarCityGames.com/regionals for more information. Plant your flag at your local regionals February 7th. As we do turn our attention back to the match, these 2 good friends, Andrew Boswell and Gerard Fabiano, we had dinner with them in Syracuse at the Dinosaur Barbecue. Good buddies doing battle here.
And 2 players who definitely have the Players' Championship in 2015 on their radar.
Yeah. Boz got into the race kind of late in the game during Season 4. We saw him travel to some places we didn't think we'd see him, like Columbus, for that large open at the back end of Season 4 that Steve Rubin did win. He can make a real run at this thing. Maybe getting the job done in Season 1 is going to be pretty tough, but all it takes is 1 tournament to get you back into things.
2 buys to start off is a huge edge for accumulating points in 2015.
Yeah.
Season 1 will be tough, but definitely multiple roads to the Players' Championship.
Fabiano going to give the camera the old wave. Always a playful guy. He'll be on the play. His plan of casting a Crux of Fate did not work out. But that's a card I expect to see a lot of play.
Well,
gives a lot of decks a lot of help.
And Hostilities has been a player in Standard, and I think it's going to do much of the same work. 5-mana sweepers are still very good as long as you're not getting killed on turn 4.
Temple O'Malley to start things off for Fabiano. Left the top card on top as we head back Boswell's way. Boswell does have 2 copies of Siege Rhino in his hand. You see a Windswept Teeth and a Swamp. He'll play a Swamp and simply pass the turn back. Fabiano draw the card that he kept on top. He'll play an Island, and there's a copy of Satyr Wayfinder. So very quickly, we'll turn over 4 cards and 3 lands along with the Crux of Fate. 2 Temple of Maladies and a Yavimaya Coast are the cards that Gerard gets to choose from. The rest, of course, will go to the graveyard.
And you see Boswell elected not to Thoughtseize on the first turn. It's because he has nothing to do for a couple turns, so he'd rather allow Gerard to draw some cards and then Thoughtseize when, you know, he has the most information or gets the most information out of it, rather than just firing it off on the first turn and having to work with a lot less information down the line.
So in Boswell's hand, he does have a copy of Manic Influence, also a Windswept Heath as well. So a couple of lands there as options. He's going to play the Heath. Looks like he's going to go with the Thoughtseize now. And we'll see exactly what Fabiano is working with. 2 copies of Tasigur, a Bile Blight, a Rakshas's Secret, along with a Temple of Malady and a Polluted Delta.
I like that Gerard put in the effort to get the foil Rakshas's Secret.
Now, someone that dislikes foils, I'm a little surprised by this.
Well, it's just a funny touch. Was Gerard inspired to put this in his deck because he opened up a foil copy in a booster pack? Could be.
Never know.
Never know.
The Secret, a card you'll of course see in the limited format. The target opponent discards 2 cards. Put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard. It's a little unorthodox, but it is something that helps you delve.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's very efficient for delving. And if you expect your opponent to be, you know, playing some slower games, it's not going to be bad.
And it is selected from Thoughtseize. So there you go. An SCG live first.
Yes.
Here comes Satyr Wayfinder.
And most likely last.
Here is the Temple. Top card's going to go to the bottom. The follow-up is Tasigur. And now this is what we wanted to see. Playing this early. This is a turn 3 Tasigur. This is a big deal.
Yep. Capable of blocking against a lot of Boswell's creatures, obviously. And if the game happens to stall out, well, then the activated power becomes very potent.
And we've seen it come down kind of later in the game in mid-range mirrors, but, you know, Fabiano, though he is more of a controlling deck, well, he's being the aggressor now. And Boswell's got a pretty slow hand, as you can see. 3 Siege Rhinos. Well, of course, that's very powerful. He's also got a copy of Valorous Stance, which looks like he's going to use to take care of Tasigur. But it demands an answer right away.
Yes.
I see in Boswell's hand, he has a Fleecemane Lion and a Nissa, too.
Valorous Stance is just so good. I've been very impressed by it so far. It seems like every single board it's doing something sweet.
Yeah, that card's no joke. Now keep in mind with Valorous Stance, and this is something you always have to look at cards now because Delve's in the format, does it destroy or exile? It says destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater, so Tasigur goes to the graveyard. Now with the fetch land, that's 2 cards in the graveyard, plus 4 mana, that's 6, so Gerard can actually play the other Tasigur in his hand, and that's exactly what he's going to do. And now it's on Boswell to actually draw a land to maybe compete in this thing. Start deploying Siege Rhinos as he draws a copy of Thoughtseize.
And even just running together Siege Rhinos here isn't necessarily that good for Boswell. Gerard can double block with his Wayfinder and end up 1 that way. In the meantime, he gets to activate Tasigur if he's feeling like it.
There's a Thoughtseize. The only selection there is Bile Blight, as Fabiano has 2 of them along with the Yavimaya Coast. Boswell will deploy Fleecemane Lion. Not all that great on this board. You have to take quite a bit of damage to do so.
I think that even if Andrew strings together some lands in a row, he's still going to be hard-pressed to win this game.
He's going to sacrifice the Windswept Heath. A forest or a plains on the way, and he'll go with a forest, will Boswell. Two mana will allow him to play the Fleecemane Lion. He'll, of course, have to lose a little more life to deploy it. He's got a 3/3 on the battlefield here. The question, of course, is will Fabiano use Bile Blight to get that out of the way? He will. So the Lion's going to bite the dust. Now Fabiano's going to come into the red zone here for 5. Put Boswell down to 6. It's funny, given the way that this game is played out, is now, of course, Fabiano has his favorite Planeswalker in Ashiok to end the turn. What we saw in game 1 was Temple, play Hero's Downfall, cast Crux of Fate, and Boswell has sideboarded and kept the hand in such a way that Gerard is a pure control deck. But this is, again, where Fabiano gets a lot of his edges.
Yep, it's a lot of 2s and 3s, and Gerard just likes to build his decks in such a way that he has a lot of play. You know, he gets a lot of different situational cards. He can play offense, he can play defense, and try to just, you know, sort of southpaw style his opponent. It's hard to play against all this different stuff.
Boswell in his hand, he's got a full house. 2 Nisses and 3 Siege Rhinos. And that's not great right now. Fabiano's going to come into the red zone. Going to put Boswell down to 1. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. It'll stay on top. Ashek's going to take down. Soldier going to come into play. Fabiano will pass. Boswell will draw, and he'll concede the game. So Gerard Fabiano going to very quickly tie things up here against Andrew Boswell. Sultai Control, now on aggro, going to go to game number 3. And again, you just mentioned how with Fabiano, you saw one thing in game 1. In game 2, you see something different, but his deck is capable of kind of playing both sides.
Yeah, Gerard's 75 cards always allow him a lot of room to maneuver. It's part of the benefit of building a deck like this. And what are you supposed to make of your opponent who has Satyr Wayfinder, Tassiger, Rakshasa's Secret, Bioblights? It's a weird mixture. Ashiok, it's a really weird mixture of cards to play against.
Yeah, Boswell's deck a lot more straightforward with his 25 creatures and 11 spells. Spells, of course, being Valeria's Stance, Bioblight, and Abzan Charm. 4, 3, and 4 of those numbers. Fabiano, well, anything but streamlined. All over the place.
All over the sun. I mean, in fact, he has a Slumber of the Drifting Death that was in the main deck that it looked like it was cut at the last second for a second copy of Ugin.
Got to win the game somehow.
I suppose so.
Well, these players will shuffle up here for game number 3. Who knows what Fabiano's configuration is going to look like. But in the meantime, we will discuss SCG Game Night. Sign-ups for March now available. You guys may have noticed the mammoth pins that we're wearing. Well, you can get those right now.
Yep, and this is the January kit, which is about to end. February kit has yet to be revealed and too late to sign up. But again, if you're looking to get set up for March, we can go ahead and do that for you. Head over to starcitygames.com/game night for more information, or contact your Star City Games organized play representative.
It used to be every Wednesday. Now it's any day of the week in January. We've been kind of following on social media, players and stores running it on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Doesn't really matter. Just get some organized play in your store and get some mammoth tokens and pins as well. Well, January still lasts, which is kind of crazy and sad to think, but this month is almost over already.
Yep. After this weekend, we had Indianapolis, and I believe that basically puts a bow on it.
I think Indianapolis actually technically starts in February. I'm not 100% positive. Oh, yeah, we'll kind of bridge the gap, actually. The first day, Saturday. The second day, Sunday. Sunday's the first, so
okay,
a little bit of each. Boss will be on the plate here for game number 3 against Fabiano. And we'll see if he can have a more aggressive approach here in the third game, much like he had in the first, where he started things off with a Warden of the First Tree and the Fleeceman line into Rakshasa's Death Dealer, a start that these Abzan aggro decks are always looking for.
And you got to worry a little bit if you're in Boswell's position now that you've seen what Gerard sideboarded and what his deck looks like now. For example, can you keep in Soldier of the Pantheon now that you know that Gerard has Satyr Wayfinder? Didn't look like a Satyr Wayfinder deck game 1, that's for sure. But now you have to call into question a lot of different things that are in your deck.
Yeah, when I was looking at Fabiano's deck list, I was blown away because I saw 2 Ugins, saw Crux of Fate. I'm like, okay, so perhaps he switched it up from what he wrote about from Blue Black, and then I saw Satyr Wayfinder. I'm like, wow, that's out of nowhere. And all right, I remember exactly what he was up to, which was, again, a little bit unorthodox, but that's Gerard being Gerard, man.
Yep. And week 1, man, just put 2 of every copy of 2 copies of every card you like in a deck and add some lands and call it a day.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what Gerard and Andrew can put together here for game number 3. Boz will be on the play to start things off. We'll see if he can find a 7 that he's happy with. Though we do know one thing about the Boz, his record with no sleeves, very good.
You mean on his shirt?
Correct.
Right.
Correct. What else could I be talking about?
His deck.
No, those don't matter. You have to play with sleeves.
Actually, in the top 4 of Grand Prix Charlotte, I de-sleeved against Gerard.
You're playing Gerard.
Gerard has historically has pretty sweaty hands, and he ruined my sleeves. So it could mean anything.
See, when you say historically sweaty, you're not underselling it either.
No.
See, if people don't know Gerard that well, like you do, and I've played against Gerard, the sweat that comes out of his hand, it's unbelievable.
It is historic, both in terms of he historically has had this problem or this issue, and historic as in the degree to which it is a problem is historic in nature.
Yes, there's a lot of sweat. And see, we'll turn over a couple of cards here. Some of them I will try to identify. Feed the Clan is one.
I think that's interpret the signs. Murderous God. And dig through time.
Welcome to Gerard Fabiano, folks.
Just perfect.
This one he wrote about extensively on the select side of Star City Games. Feels that Feed the Clan is actually a card that people won't play around and actually give them an edge in some matchups to get the games going a little bit longer, which I actually find probably to be relevant in this matchup.
I agree in the abstract. I will clarify that Gerard does not have a lot of 4-power creatures in his deck.
Yeah, Tassiger,
Yeah.
Rakshasa Death Dealer plus Pump, and there is Interpret the Signs. He's just a little all over the place.
Yeah.
BioBlight going to take care of Fleece main line. Does Gerard have a land to play? Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, he was really leaning on that Wayfinder, and now he's without a third land, without blue mana, on 2 pain lands, and facing a deck that's going to punish him for all of that.
Well, here comes the Death Dealer. Looks like no pumps. But Boswell is actually working with a rather reactive hand at this point. He has a Thoughtseize and an Utter End in his hand. Looks like he's going to fire off Thoughtseize. So Gerard isn't in the worst way here. We'll take a look at his hand. He's got a Death Dealer over there, Ashiok, another Satyr Wayfinder it seems, along with a BioBlight, a Dig Through Time, and a Crux of Fate. So he's all over the place.
And unfortunately, a lot of this hand is just not functional or not going to be fast enough. The BioBlight and the Death Dealer both matter. But past that, this is not a very good hand.
Yeah. The other issue here, too, as well, is the mana. He's got to take a lot of damage because he's got 2 Llanowar Wastes out there. That's it. So this could get a little bit ugly. He's already at 12. And though this deck doesn't go wide in Abzan aggro, doesn't put a lot of creatures on the battlefield, the creatures are big and tough.
Yes.
They hit very, very hard. And Boswell's going to record all this information before selecting a card with Thoughtseize. It will be interesting to see exactly what he does decide to take. You see his hand. Again, Utter End, Valorous Stance, and just a couple of lands. So his draw was somewhat aggressive. That BioBlight taking care of Fleece main line was certainly important. He's going to go with the Satyr Wayfinder. Wants to deny Fabiano the opportunity to get closer to a land. Boswell just going to play a swamp and pass the turn back. We'll go back Fabiano's way, we think. Yep. Player's just making sure that Boswell had not played a land already. Look good to go as Fabiano will draw. Didn't get a great look at it. Doesn't look like it's a land, though. Now he's in some trouble.
I think Boswell's committed to just trying to protect this Death Dealer.
Yeah, basically at all costs. Well, I take it back. It looks like the draw was a Polluted Delta. So timely. And Fabiano in the tank on what land he's supposed to get here, if it's a swamp or an island. If he gets an island, for example, it does turn on a card like Ashiok, but how good is that card right now?
Well, he's not immediately dead here, and it may give him the path to at least find a blocker off of Boswell's deck. And I just don't think anything else in his hand really gets him anywhere. He can't BioBlight from here. Boswell has mana available.
What road is he going to go down? We'll go with Ashiok. You got to take one to cast it. That'll take up, of course, so we'll take a look. There's a Boon Satyr. That's a Soldier of the Pantheon. There's Rakshasa Death Dealer. All hits. And we know Boswell has an answer to the Ashiok. He's got an Utter End in his hand. But to play Utter End, you got to pay a whole lot of mana.
Exactly. This is the kind of the position Gerard was trying to work for here, where if Boswell wants to remove it somehow, it's probably a huge commitment of mana. And because Boswell did not take the BioBlight out of the hand, he kind of needs to leave up at least 2 mana. The flip side of this is if Gerard just uses Ashiok and gets Soldier of the Pantheon, what's the plan from there?
Yeah.
Can't attack anymore. Can't kill it with your Utter End.
Can't kill it with your Valor Stance. Perhaps Boswell's Soldier will be used against him. Well, the easy thing to do is attack here with the Death Dealer. I have to assume it's going towards Fabiano instead of Ashiok, but we will get confirmation on where that is heading.
I mean, it could theoretically go after Ashiok.
It looks like it is going Fabiano's way. Boswell just says, you know, 2 damage is good for me because I got to utter end this thing.
Yeah, and he's giving up on the Death Dealer, but at least it's 2 more points of damage if Gerard elects to Bile Blight it because he has to tap his 2 Land of War wastes. And I just don't know if Boswell had an alternative. I don't think he can let Gerard untap with Ashiok in that spot.
Yeah, Ashiok had the ability to really run away with the game there.
Yeah, I mean, Soldier of the Pantheon, it's not clear that Boswell could beat, period. So yeah. I think he has to make this play even though it looks pretty ugly.
And Boswell's draws in Game 2 and Game 3 have just not really been all that aggressive. Haven't come together all that great. Game 1, very, very aggressive and gave some pretty large beatdowns, but this particular game, not all that great. Though he might be able to work his way and get the job done. Fabiano's going to go down to 6 to cast that Bile Blight. An attack there for 1. And now Boswell does draw a good one in Anafenza. That'll put Fabiano to the test. We'll head back Fabiano's way. Fabiano going to tap some mana here. It's a copy of Satyr Wayfinder, so a couple of cards will be turned over in Ugin, Garrick, Swamp, and the Drifting Dragon. Just a motley crew.
Yeah. A real rogues gallery of characters there, Gerard.
Swamp will come down as the land. And we're going to head back Boswell's way. In comes Anafenza. It is time to chump block, absolutely. And there's a Death Dealer. So back-to-back good draws there for Boswell. 2 big creatures. Now there's Bile Blight. It's actually pretty nice there for Fabiano. Boswell going to use Valor's Stance. Looks like players a little bit of confusion here on exactly how this works because the creature has 1 damage on it, and then you're giving it -3/-3.
This is a common rules question because Indestructible doesn't protect a creature from becoming a 0/0, but it does protect it in this scenario.
Yeah.
No matter what order it happens in, as long as it has a point of toughness left, then the Indestructible keeps it clean.
We're going to draw a card here. He thought perhaps that was going to get the job done, but not the case. You can see him shaking his head a little bit. Doesn't have the land for Crux of Fate, but even if he did, not sure that would help either.
Yeah, I mean, Gerard just caught multiple kind of bad parts of it in this game so far. You know, missing with the first Wayfinder, being stuck on the 2 Land of War wastes for as long as he has.
Nothing's really broken his way here.
And he was still pretty close to getting back into this game. I mean, if that Ashiok survives, he's in great shape.
Yeah, that or Boswell just misses on a few draw steps. Boswell's draws after the Ashiok and having to put the shields down for Death Dealer were great.
Yep.
And Anafenza and a Death Dealer.
The offensive was scribed at the top, but it was still very fortunate set of circumstances.
There's the attack, Anafenza trigger. It's the red zone. It's time to block. He's got to chump block each of them, as both of them are lethal attackers. They'll, of course, get exiled, thanks to Anafenza's text. Boswell will play Sandstorm Citadel and simply pass the turn back. Fabiano will draw. And he will extend the hand. Andrew Boswell is going to win this match here over Gerard Fabiano. 2-1. Abs on aggro will take care of Sultai Control. And for the Boz, number 15 on our Season 1 leaderboard, 6-0.
Great start with a very aggressive take on Abs on aggro. And for Gerard, again, there's a lot of humorous moments there over the course of the match. But overall, Game 3 was just an unfortunate set of circumstances.
Yeah.
I think that if he hits with that Wayfinder and is able to find blue mana, I think he's in very good shape.
Yeah, Ashiok threatened to take over that game, but was unable to do so. And that's why Andrew Boswell does win the match 2-1. As I mentioned, he is 6-0, off to a beautiful start here from DC as